Good evening. Welcome to the December 12th Lebanon City Council meeting. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, move on to the roll call members. Madam Clerk, call roll, please.
Mike Kincaid.
Present.
Keith Campbell.
Here.
Morris Jones.
Here.
Dick Robertson.
Here.
John Copeland.
Here.
Brent Wheat.
Here.
Sierra Messenger.
She's excused.
Thank you.
Okay, we don't have the minutes quite for this meeting, so we'll have those approved at our next meeting. We'll move on to old business. Before we start here, do I consent from the council to take the agenda out of order?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we change the agenda and move items.
I will need a motion. I see consent.
Oh, okay.
Yep, so we'll do consent to take the agenda out of order. So the first item up here will be ordinance 2022-37. Council to consider a UDO text amendments for the LEAP zoning district. This ordinance is on second reading. Ben Bontrager.
Good evening, council members. I'll just do a quick, brief recap of our discussion at the last meeting. This item that's before you here tonight is a text amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance, adding a LEAP zoning district. As we discussed last time, this is in response to the LEAP annexation that's coming through the process also tonight. We wanted to create a zoning district that was reflective of the goals of the LEAP zoning district, something that had a very specific set of uses as permitted, again, reflected the goals of those uses that we wanted to see in the LEAP zoning district and not allowing other uses that we don't want, that are not desirable. Making sure we had appropriate setbacks, appropriate buffer yards, appropriate landscaping based on what we envisioned for the LEAP zoning district. So just real quickly, this comes to you with a positive recommendation from the Plan Commission to adopt the LEAP zoning district, and I will just quickly, just a quick recap here. If you want to pull up the screen. Just the quick district comparison that we went through last time. So the first phase of the annexation for the LEAP zoning district was assigned to the general industrial zoning classification. What we wanted to really do was strengthen the standards for any future annexations. And so this is what the comparison is here. So the front setback in the general industrial district is 100 feet. In the LEAP zoning district, it's 300 plus feet, depending on the height of the building. Side rear setbacks are 50 feet in general industrial, and again, 300 plus feet in the LEAP zoning district. The maximum height in ID is 50 feet in the LEAP zoning district, and to address and accommodate the types of users that may come to the LEAP district. The maximum is 75 feet, but it does allow for up to 250 foot height, but with increased setbacks. So if we've got a building that's 175 feet tall, the setback would have to increase by 500 feet. So it is a scalable setback, so the taller the building gets, the further away from the property line it would need to be. In terms of the street buffers, in the ID zoning district, it is a 20-foot buffer, including 30 trees and 45 shrubs. And in the LEAP zoning district, it's 150 feet with 55 trees and a minimum of an 8-foot berm. So again, a much more substantial street buffer. And then a buffer on internal property lines where it's industrial or residential. In ID, it's 25 feet with 8 trees and 15 shrubs every 100 feet. And in the ID district, it's 125 feet, so 5 times the size, with 24 trees and a 6-foot berm. So again, looking to make sure do we strengthen those standards. Again, as I mentioned, this comes to you with a positive recommendation from Plan Commission, so I'll just kind of leave it at that and answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions for Ben for the council at this time?
Ben, one question. Go back to your chart, please. Down to where you had maximum height.
Yes.
We got a maximum height of 75 feet plus.
Yes.
Should there be and you mentioned there are no more than 250 feet?
Yeah, so in the actual text itself, this is just a summary chart. In the actual text itself, it says maximum of 75 feet. It allows for up to 250 feet in height, but then it also has a standard for every foot above 75 feet will increase the setback by 5 feet.
I understand that. What I'm getting at is that it states in the ordinance that 250 was the max, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just didn't know if we needed that maximum height in there, not to exceed 250.
That's it. In the text, it does say that.
Okay.
Yes.
Any additional questions for Ben from council at this time?
No, sir.
Okay. Any public comment concerning ordinance 2022-37? Okay. Yeah. Wow, I thought I waited long enough. Guess not. Go for it.
I guess I'm looking.
We can't hear you. Let's go to the microphone, sir.
So Jeff Newman, a couple of properties, currently living at 218 North Park Street, also own at 195 North, 200 West. So this would just be south of 32, east of 200 West, so it's kind of sandwiched between the mega site and the current industrial park. Just trying to clarify, because that was just on the table, or does the ordinance include all the changes on the LEAP district?
Yeah, the ordinance, we'll have it read, but it's a much lengthier document. That's just,
Right.
though it's just for presentation's sake to kind of simplify it.
Yeah, so, one, the table that's being shown would then include 300 feet, so a football field, a 75-foot tall building can go up there. Current concept map shows roughly half to 3/4 of a mile just west of 200 West of dock doors, semi-dock doors. And if you look at the scale of the drawing, they're really only about 350 feet from 200 West. Actually, I take that back. The drawing shows them about 600 feet from 200 West. So it's much closer. You figure a 50-foot trailer with semi, they're gonna have 150 feet of concrete, maybe 150 feet of green space. With current daylight, that means at 5 p.m., it's dark. The trees are all going to lose their leaves. We have issues currently with lights from the industrial park because the trees have all lost their leaves. So just think about half a mile, 2,000 feet. Dock door width is going to be about 20 feet between dock doors, or 20 feet per dock door. So that's 100 dock doors that conceptually is across the road, one football field away from us, on the conceptual map. So I would encourage some of those distances to be larger. Would also encourage to look at, just what all is being planned around all these houses that are still there. Whether they've had offers or not, most of the houses in my neighborhood strip have not had offers, don't really want to move, but also don't want 100 dock doors with drop trailers running all night long, between the backup signals and all the lighting and the leaves off the trees just outside the front door. Not a fan of that. If what you were talking about was on the LEAP district, the changes, just want to make sure that everybody, including the council, knows. Page 15, I don't think it was on there before, but on conditional uses is solar and SMR. And anybody who's not familiar on conditional uses, SMR, small modular reactors. And they only require currently, because they're not actually in use yet, but a reactor the size of what's on an aircraft carrier, submarine, that's what they want to put in, or that's an SMR. Most of what you're reading in utilities, articles, et cetera, they're only looking at requiring 3 or 4 acres of clear space per SMR. So that's something that I think, at least on conditional use, it's been back in. I don't think it was in there before on page 15.
It hasn't been amended, but, the conditional use, though, would require a Board of Zoning Appeals.
Pardon?
A conditional use is not permitted, right? It does still require review from the Board of Zoning
Yeah,
Appeals.
it is conditional.
Yeah.
Once it gets in as conditional, makes it a whole lot easier to use, right? Because there's lots of things that were excluded, battery manufacturing, et cetera, even though EV plants are in there. So those are just a couple of the things that I think is part of the ordinance that you're talking about on the approval.
Okay. Any further public comment? Any discussion, council, questions for Ben?
No, sir.
Okay, this time then, I would entertain a motion concerning ordinance 2022-37.
Make a motion on ordinance number 22-37. Accept it.
Motion to what, Morris? Motion to approve?
Yes, motion approved.
We have motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. Second from Glenn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ordinance is adopted unanimously. Thank you, council. Next is Resolution 2022-28, council to consider a fiscal plan for the LEAP District Phase 2 annexation. Ben?
All right, let me pull up fiscal plan here. Very good. As with all annexations that are being considered by the council, it does require the city to prepare a fiscal plan associated with that annexation. And Baker Tilly, our consultant, did prepare that fiscal plan associated with this annexation, so I'll go through some of the highlights here real quick. This fiscal plan is prepared with the assumptions that we are annexing property, and that property will remain as is for purposes of the fiscal plan. So we obviously don't know exactly how this is going to build out. But certainly as it builds out, it's going to require more services, but it's also going to pay property taxes, so we'll have additional revenue to offset those costs. So what they do is they look at what's on the ground at the time of the annexation, what sort of services will need to be provided to that area, and what sorts of revenue the city would see as a result of annexing the property, and prepares a summary of those impacts. And this is a little hard to see, so I'll try zooming in a little bit here. So as we look at this again, as I mentioned, this is based on as is, as sits in terms of the property and the existing uses, so it's primarily agricultural property. So as we looked at this in terms of providing services, the two major components of providing services are all based on the roads. So this annexation area includes about 14.5 miles of new roads that would be annexed to the city of Lebanon. So the two costs that we expect as a result of this annexation are to the street department and the police department. They're the ones that are either maintaining roads and or patrolling roads. So from the street department perspective, what they do is they look at their existing costs associated with material supplies and repairs for the year. They divide that by the number of miles in the city of Lebanon right now to come up with a cost per mile, and then they extrapolate that out to the additional 14.5 miles of road. So what they've done here in this summary is indicate in 2023, once the annexation is effective, their costs will be roughly $56,000 for the remainder of the year to maintain those roads. And then there's an inflation percentage that's added for 2024, 2025, and 26. So those are the numbers here. They kind of go from $56,000 to about $61,000 over the next 4 years in additional incremental material supplies and repair costs associated with the street department maintaining those roads. Kevin's here. He might talk a little bit. I know he's working with the county at least periodically, maybe for the next year, to to have some sort of agreement with the county highway department to continue to maintain those roads for us this winter. They obviously have specialized equipment for those county roads. I know he's working on that, and the MVH funds that would normally come to the city as a result of annexing those allow those to continue to flow to the county and allow them to continue to maintain those roads while we ramp up in this area. So that is something that's in the works, and if you need more information about what Kevin's thinking, he's here to can answer those questions. In the police department, the big thing for them is actually State Road 32. So on most of the county roads, they don't have additional calls out there, but for the segment of State Road 32 that we're annexing, there will be a series of calls that will be added to their services as a result of basically incidents on the roadway. So again, what they look at is fuel and repairs to make runs out to that area. Same calculation, their existing fuel and repair annual cost divided by number of miles, and then extrapolate that out for those 14.5 miles of new roads. What that comes out to for the police department is about $23,000 in 2023, ramping up to a little over $25,000 by 2026 for those additional fuel and repair costs. Now, there is in the summary in here, it explains that the police department is already adding 3 police officers that were approved for the 2023 year related to growth in the city. So it's not necessarily directly as a result of this annexation, obviously, because they had to get their budget approved before this came through the process. But they do have some additional police officers that are in response to the additional growth in the city, and certainly will be able to provide services in this area. So this is really just related to the fuel and repairs associated with the additional mileage of roads. So you'll see here the net totals for new services to provide to this area, roughly $80,000 in 2023, ramping up to about $86,000 in 2026. Let me go back to the slide before. So look at the revenue side of this. So the estimated net assessed value of the annexation area is this column number 1. You see is just a little bit north of $8.6 million. And then you can see the increases in property tax levies, increase in net assessed value of the city, and then estimated property tax levy of the city you see increasing from 2023 paid 2024 about 9.5 million going up to about 11.6 million by 27 paid 28. And in this calculation, they look at the increase in the levy associated with the annexation, and that's what you see in this summary of the net impacts here. So the estimated levy increase is about in 2024, because obviously there's a year in arrears on property tax payment. While this annexation will be effective in 23, we won't actually see any revenue to 24 when those tax payments first come in. About $53,000, ramping up to about $60,000 in 2026. In terms of the local income tax certified shares, you can see an increase of just under $20,000. Local income tax public safety will increase about $10,500. And the estimated CCD levy increase of about $4,300 for a total. Actually, this doesn't have the total on it. It just has the additional costs summarized below here from the chart above. So you can see the net impact certainly in 2023, we're going to start providing services to that area without seeing revenue for that area. So that's the $79,000 you see in 2023. But in 2024, we're already to the net positive of about $6,000 to $7,000 over the next 3 years. Certainly, we expect that there's going to be some development out in this area, so these numbers will change as this develops, but based on what's on the ground now in terms of the agricultural property and the services we need to provide to this area, this is a summary of the fiscal impact to the city of costs to the street and police department, and then the estimated revenues that the city would see from those additional property tax revenues and local income tax on this summary you see here. So that's a quick overview of the fiscal plan, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Just a comment, because I've told you this personally, is, my issue with fiscal impact plans is that if it's usually just a small annexation of a couple parcels, this is fine, but when it's something big, it doesn't answer a lot of questions, even though I know you can only, based on what is there now.
Right.
And since the city doesn't have any control over that right now, it's hard to, project what's going to happen and so forth. But I just think something this big, I think there needs to be like a projected, like a pro forma you'd have in a business plan, like this is the possibilities.
Yeah.
That's just information I think everybody would like to have.
Well, I think you can certainly, if you extrapolate, say, the Eli Lilly project over this, Eli Lilly, about 400-acre project, is about a $2 billion investment. So we can expect the investment in this area to be in the billions, if not tens of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
That's going to generate significant revenue to the city of Lebanon. So we certainly understand over time that we're going to have to provide additional services. There will be more roads that we're going to need to be maintained. Police and fire are going to be busier once this develops out, but the revenue side is going to increase exponentially. Just looking at some of the general projections, Eli Lilly itself, that's going to be an IDD district as established by the state of Indiana. The projection on the 12% pass through to the city is about $1 to $1.5 million in revenue on our pass through to the city. We won't have $1.5 million per year in services we need to provide to Eli Lilly. So when you look at some of these projects, they're very, very investment intensive, some of them tens of billions of dollars. They're going to generate way more revenue than the services they need. This is going to be a net positive to the city. If you look at the city over time, half of our assessed value is from the Lebanon Business Park. So half of our property tax revenue comes from just the Lebanon Business Park. And I can guarantee you that they do not use 50% of the services the city provides. It's primarily to residents. So non-residential uses are a net positive to the city in terms of the amount of revenue and property taxes they pay versus the services they need. So over time, we're going to see the same thing happening here. That trend will continue.
I know that, and you know that.
Yeah.
I just like make sure everybody else knows that.
Sure.
And it'd be nice to have it like written down so people knew that.
I mean, we could provide an evaluation and an estimate there, and we'd be making a laundry list of assumptions to come up with those estimates. So it's a little challenging to do that with the amount of assumptions you'd have to make. I mean, I could say it's a $100 billion investment. Do I know that that's anywhere close? I have no idea. So we'd make a lot of assumptions, and what that is, and certainly there's additional incentives that the state could provide that could change those numbers too if it goes to an IDD versus just local property taxes. So there's a lot of assumption you have to make to do that, but yeah,
Well, that's what a business plan is. It's a lot of assumptions. You hope it's going to work out.
yeah. And the assumptions that we're required to use based on state code are, here's what's on the ground. It's all ag property. That's what the state code requires us to use in terms of preparing a fiscal plan, so that's what we've done.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for Ben? Okay, Rob, I'll have you read the resolution, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, Resolution 2022-28 is a resolution of this council establishing a fiscal plan for the annexation of certain territory to the city of Lebanon. Whereas this council is considering the annexation of certain territory to the city of Lebanon. The area to be annexed is legally described in Exhibits A and depicted in Exhibit B. Pursuant to Indiana Code, this council is required to adopt a written fiscal plan prior to the passage of Annexation Ordinance 2022-38. Whereas the required fiscal plan, which is included as Exhibit C in attached Tier 2, has been prepared and presented to this council for consideration. The fiscal plan has been reviewed and complies with the requirements in Indiana Code. Therefore, be it resolved and adopted that this council hereby approves the fiscal plan for the area sought to be annexed.
Okay. Resolution's been read. Further discussion from council? Questions? Is there any public comment at this time? Please keep comments to 3 minutes if possible. Also state your name and address for the record as well, please.
Hello, Britt Reese, 6519 North, 350 West. So I just wanted to point something out, and for the community too, if they've not read through the document, but we talk about these assumptions, and even Mike, I appreciate you talking about the information out there for us to look and understand, but it's hard to take things seriously when you turn to page 3 for current population. They use the 2010 census data, that 40 people live in that area. So how can you trust the accuracy of the projection in this document when the data used for population, it's not even taken seriously? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any additional public comment?
Joyce Douglas, 409 North Meridian Street. A couple things Ben left out were utility, hiring, police, hiring, fire. That adds up. And I know you, Keith, Dick, Mike, John, and Tanya, you were all here when the city annexed 6.2 miles just south of the fairgrounds many years ago. Not that many. It took a while to build up. It took utilities, it took infrastructure, it took roundabouts, it took roads, it took millions of dollars. I want you to think very carefully on this annexation, because I've heard from so many of you, I've spoken to some of you, and some of you have said, well, they think we're the enemy. We don't think you're the enemy. In fact, you've been very helpful with the questions you've asked and the presentations given by the city. And the mayor keeping up with the website, slow but surely, with the updates. But what do you really know about IEDC and their past? And do they keep all their promises? What if Lily asks, and they will, for a tax abatement? That's less money coming into the city. And if you're going to ruin this pristine, grade A farmland soil, then you better darn well think about what you're doing in regards to finances, because I think 12%, I think you should ask for 20%. Thank you.
Further public comment?
Hi, again, Jeff Newman. My one question comes back to when the water utilities were being approved, part of the amendment that was put in was to clarify IEDC would not be paying any taxes for property that they own. So the increased property tax revenue would currently be residents who haven't sold or haven't sold yet because they've got a 1 or 2 year due diligence happening. So those residents will be paying the increased property taxes. IEDC on property that they've actually own won't be paying those. So if this is a 10 or 20 year build out, while IEDC owns the property, no tax revenue is my understanding on any of that.
Thank you for your comments. Further comment?
Brian Daggy, 2005 West, 250 North, speaking for Boone County Farm Bureau. With regard to the fiscal plan, this has been introduced pretty quickly, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming you've not had a lot of time to examine it, but I would agree with some of the previous comments that I think it's fairly simplistic and doesn't address a lot of the real things that are going to come up down the road. Road improvements, as far as I know, the city of Lebanon doesn't have any gravel roads in it currently. This will take some in. I don't know what the city plans to do about that. Maybe the bigger question in my mind is, most of this ground is under option. The assumption is the state's going to own it at some point in the near future. Who's going to pay the property taxes at that point? Has the state agreed to a pilot of payment in lieu of taxes? Or are you going to be stuck with a year or two where they own it and you're not getting any of the revenue that's been forecast? I've not heard that question come up or been answered yet. And it seemed like a pretty big one in my mind. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Additional public comment? Further discussion from council?
Yeah, I got a question for Ben. Can you answer their question regarding the tax? Property taxes?
If IEDC owns, so if the IEDC is a non-tax, they're not a tax-paying entity, so if there is a period of time that they own it, it will not pay taxes. However, they don't intend to own properties for a long period of time. They will not close on properties until they have a project in tow. Excuse me. They have no intention to own, that's why they have those long due diligence periods, because they don't intend to close on property until there's a project ready to go. So there will be typically a short window. There are some properties that they will close on that may be a period of time where they own them, not pay taxes. I will point out, though, in the fiscal plan, that represents about $55,000 a year. We're not talking about a significant amount of money. That's the entire 5,200 acres is $56,000 a year if they were to close on the entire thing.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for Ben from council?
No, sir.
We've had it read. Would entertain a motion then concerning resolution 2022-28.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2022-28, the establishment of a fiscal plan for the annexation of certain territory to the city of Lebanon.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Morris. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved unanimously. Thank you, council. Next up, ordinance 2022-38, council to consider the LEAP District Phase 2 annexation. Ben, you're back up.
All right, let me wake the computer up here real quick. So I'll just real quickly summarize the annexation before you here tonight. It is about 5,200 acres. It is a 100% voluntary annexation, so it's a super voluntary annexation. This will be coming to you with a positive recommendation from the Plan Commission to assign the LEAP zoning district and the SF zoning district to the annexation area. And let me pull up that map real quick so you can see where that's being proposed. All right. So here is the proposal for the zoning district. What you see here in blue, which includes the Big Four Trail, is the kind of the south boundary, and then everything to the north of that would be assigned to the SF, single-family residential zoning classification. And then everything else that you see in pink, which is kind of on both sides of State Road 32, would be assigned the LEAP zoning district, which was just adopted earlier this evening at the meeting. So that comes to you with a positive recommendation from the Plan Commission to assign the zoning in this district, zoning districts in this manner that you see here on this map. So I could go into further detail on the annexation. I know we talked at length at the last meeting. If there's anything specific you want me to cover relating to the annexation, I can certainly do that. But this is a 100% voluntary annexation. What comes to it comes to what the LEAP and SF zoning districts recommended based on the Plan Commission. So I know that IEDC has a couple of slides they wanted to go through too as well. But if you have any questions for me specific about the annexation, I'd be happy to address them.
Any questions for Ben from the council this time?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. David or Kurt? David?
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, thank you for your time and consideration of this matter tonight. David Rosenberg, COO with IEDC. We certainly won't belabor the points we presented last time, but just did want to take a quick minute here to answer some of the questions that came up at that meeting and have come up since. So as a refresher, this is the potential conceptual vision for LEAP at full build-out. Again, this is a decade-plus build-out. We do not have all this land under contract, and we'll continue to only implement this as the market continues to show the demand side of it. But this is what full build-out could look like, over the next decade, again, as the market responds. Here's the land under consideration for annexation tonight, with the planned development area south of the Big Four and SF north. Again, this is a 100% voluntary annexation that respects the property rights of those landowners. We've had a few questions on the road network. This is a rendering of 32 and South 200 West to show the traffic calming at the intersection. So this certainly will not be the Autobahn as cars come off of there, but traffic calming, NDOT implementing this as they do all across the state with their standard design and engineering process. Similarly, State Road 52 will not be a heavy haul route, but a true boulevard concept that matches the aesthetics and backbone of the mixed-use village, including multi-use paths and tree-lined roads. As we mentioned last meeting, water and wastewater are well underway. Implementation for Phase 1 will begin in Q1 2023. Phase 2 engineering and design work have begun, and we expect the procurement process to take place in summer of 2023. Again, this will be a regional generational water solution that is spurred by an economic development project, but will assist in the growth of the entire region and cities and towns up and down this water pipeline. Just to reemphasize a few other points, this will be a market-driven development, and as potential companies have interest in locating within LEAP, the city and county will continue to work very closely together to ensure the project meets the vision of LEAP and what this council and the city expects in its developments. As we have always done, even before LEAP was interacting, good economic development only occurs when the state and city and locals are partnering together, and we continue to pledge that moving forward. As was mentioned previously, the IDC does not own much of this land. It is under contract. We do not plan to own the land until there is a project in place, and at that time, the intention is to transfer that property to the long-term holder and that end user. It is not intended for the state to be a long-term holder, and so the goal is to have this property back on the tax rolls. And then finally, as projects continue to be brought forth, they will still require development approvals from the city, and this council will still have a say as those projects move forward and LEAP continues to develop. So again, didn't want to belabor these points, but just wanted to provide a quick update on some of these things. Happy to answer any questions the council may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions for David from the council at this time?
No, sir.
I have a question.
Of course.
And this is going to be more of a generalized, it's been touched on in different ways, but describe a scenario that would cause the city of Lebanon and its taxpayers to pay for the water, wastewater treatment plant, street, and sewer infrastructure necessary for the sanitation.
I don't know of a scenario that exists. It is the full intention of the state and why the state is at the table to bring our resources to bear to ensure that the long-term generational water solution and wastewater solution is here not only for LEAP in Lebanon, but also the entire central Indiana area.
Any further questions for David?
No, sir.
Thank you.
I got one.
Go ahead,
Dave,
sir.
Dave, as we've talked before, as the discussions have been water either from the south or from the north, or maybe both directions, whatever. You know, we've talked in the past about trying to give outlets to other than just Lebanon, you know, in other parts of the county, so other parts of the county can get a good water supply and so forth, and especially if you come up the come down the north end, there are several small town communities up that direction from here to Lafayette that I'm sure could use a boost, and someday will probably have to grow from something like this, because there's going to be, you know, depends on how quick something comes in and how quick it gets put up, but you know, we have a big issue of where's people going to stay, where's people going to live in Boone County. I know the Boone County Commissioners are doing a study with the EDC on housing and so forth in the county. You know, we've known for a long time there's a housing shortage in the county, okay? But I just know that we're going to need more places to go, and that's why water's going to need to go to more places other than just this area. And I think people need to understand that the idea is that water's going to have to go out in other areas around central Boone County and northern Boone County to get people where people can afford to build somewhere, you know, in the county and so forth, and even east of Lebanon here, so we could try to create a housing area for people between here and Indianapolis area and so forth, so, okay.
Absolutely.
Any additional questions, comments?
No, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have Rob read this on second reading, please.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This ordinance 2022-38 concerns an ordinance annexing certain territory to the city of Lebanon. Whereas owners of approximately 5,225 acres of land located in unincorporated Boone County but contiguous to the city, this is the LEAP Phase 2 annexation area, have petitioned to have their land voluntarily annexed into the city of Lebanon. This council is legally authorized to annex lands that qualify for annexation as defined in Indiana Code, and is desirous of approving the annexation of the LEAP Phase 2 annexation area. LEAP Phase 2 annexation area is a transformational economic development opportunity for the state of Indiana, Boone County, and the city and the council supports the proposed development and use of the LEAP Phase 2 annexation area in order to attract and support new business investment with the focus of attracting advanced manufacturing, agri-science, bioscience, and other economy of the future businesses. Whereas the LEAP Phase 2 annexation area consists of 122 separate parcels, again containing a total of approximately 5,225 acres, owned by 43 landowners, not including adjacent public roadways. The LEAP Phase 2 annexation area is identified in Exhibits A and B. This council finds that 100% of the landowners comprising the LEAP Phase 2 annexation area have signed and filed a voluntary annexation petition with this council. Whereas the LEAP Phase 2 annexation area does not include any parcel of land for which its owners have not filed an express written consent to this annexation. Pursuant to Section 1.8B of the city's Unified Development Ordinance, this council has received and considered a development proposal concept plan which provides sufficient information about the intended development and use of the LEAP Phase 2 annexation area. Whereas the City of Lebanon Advisory Plan Commission held a public hearing and recommended the zoning classification for the proposed annexation area at its regularly scheduled meeting on November 21st, 2022, and forwarded docket 22-72 to this council with a favorable recommendation to assign the LEAP and single-family zoning classification to the LEAP Phase 2 annexation area. Whereas in accordance with Indiana Code on November 28, 2022, this council held a public hearing regarding the petition for annexation of the LEAP Phase 2 annexation area. Whereas this council has adopted a fiscal plan for the annexation of the LEAP Phase 2 annexation area in accordance with Indiana Code. This council has determined, after due consideration, that this annexation satisfies the contiguity requirements pursuant to Indiana Code as described in Exhibit D. Whereas part of the LEAP Phase 2 annexation area is contiguous to public roadways and right-of-ways under Indiana Code, those portions of such roadways and right-of-ways are to be annexed into the city. Now therefore, the foregoing recitals are found to be accurate and are incorporated by reference. The annexation area. The LEAP Phase 2 annexation area, generally located on the west side of Interstate 65, bordered on the west by County Road 500 West and south by County Road 50 South, and on the north by the Big Four Trail, with a few parcels located north of the trail that are depicted in Exhibits A and more particularly described in Exhibit B, is eligible for annexation into the city and is hereby declared annexed into and part of the city of Lebanon. Contiguity. The LEAP Phase 2 annexation area meets the contiguity requirements for annexation pursuant to Indiana Code. At least 1/8 of the external boundaries of the LEAP Phase 2 annexation area coincides with and adjoins the existing city boundaries. The council district. The LEAP annexation area is hereby assigned council districts 2 and 3 and shall become a part thereof immediately upon the effective date of this ordinance. The zoning, Section 5. Upon the recommendation of the Plan Commission, the LEAP annexation area is hereby assigned the LEAP or LP and single-family residential zoning classifications as described in Exhibit C. The effective date of this ordinance shall be in full force and effect upon its passage by the council, required publications and filing, and upon any expiration of applicable waiting periods.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. Ordinance has been on second reading. Further discussion, comments from council at this time? This time, is there any public comment? Again, please keep comments to 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record, please.
Jim Love, 3150 North State Road 52, Lebanon, Indiana. You've seen me here before. I'm here again in review. We want to talk about ag land quality. If you remember that discussion where we talked about the quality of the land that we're going to cover up with concrete in an effort to bring foreign businesses to Boone County, seems foolish. Water availability, we continue to hear, don't worry, water will be fine. Don't worry, water will be fine. That's pretty easy to say, but that's going to be a lot harder to accommodate when we need that water, and we've already given away half of the surplus water that Lebanon has at this point. The last question I have for you guys is, what's your word worth? Because when we were here the last time, there was a great deal of discussion about the fact that you guys didn't like the fact that that was forced through, there was lots of holes in it, and we annexed in a section of the town or a section of the country into the city that we knew nothing about what was getting ready to go down in that area. So while we're on that exact topic, let's talk about this. If you look at the information that they put out a couple days ago about the Lilly project, they show that Witt Road is going to be blocked going north from 300 all the way to 47. So Lilly is not going to let people through Witt Road. So when you think about that, we will now have a 4.5-mile wide swath of Boone County that has 2 north-south arteries in it. 2. We had 3, which was barely enough. We'll have 2. One of those is going to be State Road 39, which people cry about 39 endlessly. Some of the folks that are sitting here in this room cry about it nonstop, that there's too much traffic on 39. Well, now what we're going to do is we're going to force the Witt Road traffic over to 39. That will not only be truck traffic, car traffic, that's also going to be our slow-moving traffic that takes safe passage up and down Witt Road now to move equipment back and forth, to move things that move slow back and forth. But we're going to take that out of the mix because Eli Lilly needs to be able to virtue signal and put their solar array out along I-65 so that all the world can see that Eli Lilly is a clean place to live. So you need to think about that. You guys voted through an annexation without knowing what was going on, and now what we have is we have people like Karen Metzger and Daniel Morrison who are getting hassled by IEDC's goons on a regular basis to widen out Witt Road so that they have a bigger road to where? Where's Karen Metzger going to go? If she turns and goes south, you know what she's going to find? She's going to find an angry gate guard at an Eli Lilly plant that says, ma'am, you can't come through this gate anymore. You've got to go out around Robin Hood's barn to get to Lebanon. So keep that in mind. What I would like to see, we hear a lot of jabbering in this room about transparency over and over. So in the effort of transparency, I would like to hear each of you give us a couple sentences and tell us why or why not a blind annexation of primarily farmland into the city in favor of foreign industry and business is good for Indiana, Boone County residents. A vote for annexation this evening is a vote for just that.
3 minutes.
I'm done speaking. It's your turn.
Thank you for your comments. Further public comment?
Are you guys going to answer my question?
This isn't a question and answer session, sir. Is there further public
Oh,
comment?
we've got time.
It's not how we operate our meetings.
After the public hearings, then he'll ask if any of us want to say something.
Okay.
And then we'll be able to do that.
We'd sure love to hear it. Sure. We've got the time.
Hello, Britt Reese up here again. So I have a couple of questions for the IEDC. So let's start with funding. This is a two-part question. How much and where's that funding coming from? Last week, I pulled from the Indiana Sales Disclosure Database, and thus far, the IEDC has paid over $87 million to acquire a little bit over 1,200 acres. What is interesting is that only includes property from the initial annexation. At the June 29th, 2022 State Budget Committee meeting, the IEDC asked for $164 million, with approximately $123 million to fund the grasslands and desert lands acquisition projects for the purchase and development of property in Boone County, approximately 1,300 acres. So let's look at our scale here. Think about that last annexation, 87 million. Look at the number of acres they're trying to annex in now. So my question to the IEDC, where do your pockets end? How much is this going to cost taxpayers at the end of the day? This brings me to my second question. Where's this money coming from? It is well known the IEDC already is using $500 million of federal COVID funding from the American Rescue Plan Act to fund the READY program. I really hope they are taking extra care on their accounting practices of the program and improve their track record. During the IEDC's audit for the State Board of Accounts in fiscal year 2020 and 21, significant deficiencies were found in IEDC's internal control environment over financial reporting related to the CARES Act funding. Which brings me to my second question. Where's the funding coming from? If a dime of this is coming from the federal COVID relief project, or from COVID federal relief, the public has the right to know, and it is fair game to get audited. For example, in the state and local fiscal recovery funds 2022 report, $3 million are allocated to the Clinton County Water Development Project. The description is to develop 10 high-capacity wells that will contribute to reducing climate change. The final rule, which I've got, all this stuff printed out, so final rule from the U.S. Department of Treasury, coronavirus, state, and local fiscal recovery funds. So the final rule on this federal funding clearly states that large capital projects for general economic development or aid to impact industries is ineligible. Are these the high-capacity wells that we keep hearing about that were getting explored in Clinton County? Because if they are, I'm pretty sure that that's not eligible for that federal funding. So what other dollars and line items are being buried and hidden from us? So my last question. So in your Q4 report that's online, you've got your business development and of course code words for all your projects. And on this Q4 report, you've got Project Drone Police, Project Ripple. So Project Ripple is an attraction of a battery recycler. New jobs, wages above the county and state averages. So where are these going to be located?
It's 3 minutes.
Michael Yarian, 500 West. I would like to add to Mr. Love's. First of all, the infrastructure Lebanon can't handle anymore. State Road 39, anybody that lives here, 5 o'clock on any afternoon, especially on Friday, it's a terrible situation to get through. You add an accident that might be on 65, funnels down to 52, like this gentleman neglected to mention. Then it filters into the countryway because 32 can't handle the infrastructure. The lawyer here last meeting said that as long as there's Great Lakes, we have no problem with water. Well, what he doesn't understand, Great Lakes is a protected waterway. Any states that border the Great Lakes, not allowed to that water. I'll stop there.
Thank you for your comments.
I'll just be mad if I go.
Additional comment?
Donnie Lawson, 4919 Sarum Plant Road. Yeah, I'm also an elected official in this county, a county commissioner. I'm responsible to 73,000 people that live in this county. Every decision I make affects every one of them. It doesn't matter whether they live in a town or out in the country. Every decision the county makes affects them. The decisions that you're making today is all about growing Lebanon, not what it's going to do to the county. You don't understand what it does to the ag business in this county. How many businesses here in Lebanon, John Deere, Case, all the other businesses that rely on agriculture in this county? You start building more buildings and less people, because that was said earlier, it's better to have the buildings than it is the people. And that's what you're thinking. That destroys an industry. I'm the second generation on our farm, and I have 2 more that want to be on our farm. And the way this stuff is going, you're destroying agriculture in this county. Another problem that there is, the water supply. We have a beautiful aquifer here that supplies all of us in the northern part of the county. So when you're talking about that you got to pump water other places, no, you take care of what you got. The more of these businesses you put in, the lower that aquifer is going to be. The more wells you're going to pay for to be put deeper, because every one of those is your responsibility. Now, you don't have to do a thing for Thorntown, and that's where they get all their water. So those are other things here, and whether you need to pump more water to Thorntown, you don't. Stay away from their water now. You already take, I think, 2 to 3 million gallons a day out of that aquifer. You need to find another source. If you're going to put all these buildings in, they're going to use millions and millions of gallons of water and take out prime farmland. That's a disgrace to this county.
I just have a few comments. I'm Wanda Garst, 6446 West, 400 North, Thorntown. First of all, I'm going to go back to the Lilly project. You guys need to tell them no about closing any current county roads, period. Also, everybody's concerned about where the water is coming from, which is also a concern of mine, but I also want to know where all the wastewater is going to go. Are you going to turn Prairie Creek and Sugar Creek into raging rivers? Because that's what it sounds like to me. And you guys are public officials that are elected to do what's best for the people that you serve. And what is best for the people you serve is not annexing this into this ground. This ground should remain farm ground. That's what the people in this community live here because it is a small town. That's the atmosphere they want to live in. They don't want to live in Carmel or Fishers. They want to live in a small town, USA, Lebanon. And as far as taking farm ground out of production, you've heard that over and over, and I agree with that 100%. But have a backbone, stand up for what's right and not the power above you. Thank you.
Good evening, Peggy Daggy, 2005 West, 250 North. I had a lot of things written down that I wanted to say this evening, and some of them have already been said, so I'll cut that out. But, you know, I'm tired. We bought our home to retire in May of 21. And in December of 21, we found out we were going to have to be selling our house. And since then, this is what I've done with my retirement. It's come to these meetings, go to the meetings of our group. It's constant. And there's always something going on. There's always something new happening. So I'm tired. But one of the things I wanted to speak to this evening is that in Thursday, December 8th, 2022 Lebanon Reporter, Matt Gentry appeared as a guest columnist. The title was Economic Benefits of the LEAP District for City. He stated that the IEDC decided on Lebanon because of its proximity to Indianapolis, the International Airport, Purdue University, and the available land. None of this available land was for sale as far as we can determine. The IEDC corporate real estate brokers, Cushman & Wakefield, were given the task of contacting all property owners in the targeted area and offer to purchase their properties. The most desirable being farmland in some of the most productive areas in the country. These landowners were offered exorbitant amounts of money for their properties in exchange for signing a sales option with the stipulation that the owners would request their property be annexed into the city. Thus the wordplay on voluntary annexation. In other words, we'll pay you all this money, but only if you agree to annex. As of December 7th, as Britt spoke of, 1,272.21 acres have been closed on. They've actually been purchased by the state of Indiana through the IEDC to the tune of $87,104,620 of your taxpayer dollars. Is Eli Lilly buying that 1,272 acres? Because right now the state owns it and they're not paying any taxes. If they're only buying 600 acres, like has been said before, where are the other 600 acres going to go? Is the state going to continue to have those? What's planned for that? We haven't heard anything about the rest of those acres. And now we're moving on to the 52 to 5,500 acres. In the column, it was said that the revenue received directly to the city from a project like this would be the tens of millions. Where are those projections? Is that just pie in the sky? It's going to be tens of millions? The column also stated, we assume the state will use a new economic development tool called the Innovation Development District. This captures the state's portion of taxes and requires those dollars to be reinvested in the district to fund infrastructure. We assume they are going to use that. If water mains in town need to be upgraded to serve LEAP, the state should pay for it. Wastewater treatment also, the state should pay for it.
4 minutes.
If a new road needs to be built to connect US 52 and State Road 32, the state should pay for it. Where's that written? Our experience has been that the state says a lot but doesn't always follow through. They said they would not annex any additional property until the PUD was completed. The PUD is still in process, and they now have asked for another 5,200-plus acres to be annexed. They also indicated to the county commissioners that they would assist in paying for the $800,000 PUD plan, which the county council took into consideration when approving the money for the PUD. But as of last week, no monies have been received. How can you say the state will pay for it when there is not even an indication of the cost? The cost and the revenue are pure speculation at this point on promises from the state.
Open public comment.
Good evening. My name is Diana Freeman, and I'm a resident of rural Washington Township. I've been coming to several of these meetings. I see some of the same faces along this front row, best seats in the house. And I see local county residents left to fend for themselves. I don't think I've ever seen or heard from a petitioner, an actual petitioner who's requesting the annexation for this 100% super voluntary annexation. I thought I'd just point that out before I begin. A few weeks ago, I attended a meeting of the Boone County Area Plan Commission. At this meeting, Mayor Matt Gentry was given polite perdition by one of the members of the commission. This area plan commissioner pointed out that the APC had gone about the business of adhering to the provisions of the county's comprehensive plan for many years, not allowing exceptions to individuals, local individuals, by the way, or developers who wanted to divide or subdivide land zoned agricultural beyond the provisions of the plan. He was not best pleased to have Mr. Mayor standing in front of him advocating for the boundless impunity of the state of Indiana in sweeping into Boone County with their sights upon the very land from which they had turned away many others. Nor am I. The governor and the IEDC, along with the Republican supermajority, have created the mechanism by which this travesty can occur. They have essentially told Boone County, we want control of your land. And the city of Lebanon has so far said, be our guest. All of you have broken faith with the current residents of Boone County, most especially the current residents of the area. I reiterate what I have said before at previous meetings. The decision you are facing is a matter of principle. Mrs. Garst is correct. We need to do what's right. You all can treat it as a matter of expedience. But the state of Indiana has no business coming stealthily into this or any other county and sidestepping the officials elected to represent county interests to further its own plans. This is a perfect example of government grown far too big for its britches. Let me repeat this. This is a perfect example of government grown far too big for its britches. Who exactly is representing the interests of rural Boone County at this point?
3 minutes.
No one. Respect for the principles of independent self-governance and local autonomy compels a no vote to this annexation. I ask you to do that. Vote no. Thank you.
Further public comment?
Hi there. My name is Tracy Heine. I've been without a voice for a week and a half, so I do apologize. Address is 4520 West 300 North. For the last 5 years and 15 years prior to that, I was in Lebanon on North Meridian and a 20-year volunteer for Lebanon. The first time it was made public, sorry, I can't read my glasses. The first time it was made public that there was some kind of entity pushing land contracts in Lebanon was when the Boone County Commissioners essentially forced the state's hand on March 24th at the WEBO meeting. A Facebook group was started that night and a petition started the next day That petition garnered over 1,000 signatures in the first 24 hours. Our community has been trying to get leaders to listen, and not in a check-the-box survey kind of way, but really, truly listen. Last night, it hit me how much all of this has felt like a court case, and especially when you hear that gavel. Essentially, there are two sides, right? We have a Team M, M for money, and a Team C, C for community. In our example, Team C is the defendant, isn't literally trying to stay out of a jail cell, of course, but instead of bars in a jail cell, the constraints Team C is fighting against are 20-story tall concrete manufacturing monoliths, light pollution, etc. By the way, I am really curious what the reason was for changing in the summary the height requirement from 250 to 75 plus. So there are arguments made by each side in a court case. In a court case, each side has an equal amount of time to prep, an equal amount of time to present, and an equal amount of time to respond. Team C has been at a disadvantage on all of those fronts. And to prove someone guilty, you need a lot of evidence, right? A lot of facts. I've heard a lot of not yet knowns or to be determined, or we can't say at this time, or tonight, assumptions, intentions, or even full intentions. That it will get figured out, and that we're following the standard process. From what I've seen, Team M has presented very few facts and a whole bunch of conjecture. Meanwhile, Team C has over 2,400 petition signers, hundreds of group members, which you can verify those numbers. Team C has asked Team M to provide data, but has been told that surveying the community would be a terrible waste of tax dollars. So the standard process, this whole time we've been hearing about the standard process, the standard timeline, this is the standard notifications. But what is really standard about any of this is it the standard process for the state of Indiana to tiptoe around trying to buy thousands of acres, taking advantage of fear and lack of information. The state of Indiana so far has spent, as people have said, $87 million on 1,200 acres. If you look at the ag land sales, so land zoned ag over the last 5 years in all of Boone County, about 590 acres were sold over the last 5 years, zoned ag for all of Boone County. And we're, in the last, few months, we've sold 1,200 acres, over twice that. By the way, the 590 acres was for $8 million, so the average for the purchases over the last 5 years was $13,000. Last few months, the average was $72,000. Back to the court case analogy, how did Team C end up on the defense in all of this? How is it that Team M's argument seems pretty darn weak, yet anyone who is placing bets on tonight would put their money on Team M? You, of course, representing the citizens of Lebanon, have the responsibility of being the judge and jury. Has Team M provided substantive, irrefutable data to support their case, sentencing Team C to having their community made unrecognizable? How do you decide what Lebanons want without any kind of referendum or survey? Team C has presented data reflecting the support they have and data challenging so much of just about all of this. I want to trust that you have all done your due diligence. I understand you have certainly been given a very short amount of time.
4 minutes.
And a limited amount of information that was decided to be provided to you. You already decided to annex the 1,200 acres with a commitment of at least $2.1 billion, and that's billions with a B. So if you vote yes tonight, I hope you really start to dig deep and think about when is enough. When's enough enough? We've been a small 11,000 acre city with an ag heritage and a small town lifestyle, the friendly city, right? We've already decided we should be a small city with an ag heritage and now a chemical plant. At the end of today, do you really think that our community wants to be the small 17,000 acre city known for being a manufacturing hub? Where is the threshold where we say we prioritize preserving our community, our identity, our heritage? Is there a dollar amount that is enough? How many billions is that? I'm going to talk really quickly. I know I'm over. We all know that if this happens, it will produce generational change. We can all come up with different narratives. Here's my personal narrative.
5 minutes.
To my grandkids. So, to my grandkids, there used to be small family farms here. I know you know what corporate farms look like, where there are no trees for miles and miles, and any waterway has been carved into straight lines. You've seen plenty of that. Well, there used to be lots of trees, many of them really, really old, but it was really beautiful with the 3 creeks meandering through. I really thought it was the prettiest rural part of Lebanon. There were deer, coyotes, owls, a blue heron always visited our pond, and neighbors had several bald eagles that lived nearby.
Your mom and your uncle did 4-H. You'll have to ask your mom about showing chickens. And they both went to Webo, and it was the kind of small-town high school you saw in the movies where everyone comes out to football games, not just students, but alumni, parents, grandparents, and the spirit was really something I wish you could experience. Back to small family farms, there were beautiful historic barns and families who had farmed their family farms for 5-6 generations. Back then, the state of Indiana would give what was called the Hoosier Homestead Award. It honored those Hoosier families who had farmed their land for over 100 years. It makes me sad you don't get to see what all of this used to be.
6 minutes. Need to wrap up comments.
There is more life, much, much more than money, and I know you all know that. Please have your vote reflect that tonight. That Lilly area is already going to be a huge task. As a representative of your community, please vote for Team C.
Thank you for comments.
Damon Crease, 1133 Brookside Drive in Morningside. I wasn't planning on coming up here and speaking today. I just wanted to come and see how this was going. And I'm late to all of this. I didn't get the chance to be involved as much as I wanted to be. But as somebody who this isn't directly going to affect, it's not my land, but as somebody who was born and raised here and somebody who is very active in this community, this doesn't pass the sniff test. I don't understand what the rush is. This all seems like it's being railroaded through, and anything that's worth doing is worth doing right. I just hope that you guys all take our side of things on this, that growth is not bad. Forced growth and annexing this much land without a plan, this isn't a plan. This is not what we should be doing as a community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Again, Brian Daggy, 2005 West, 250 North, Lebanon, speaking for Boone County Farm Bureau. First, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I know this is a tough job you have, and I want you to think about this very carefully, because this project has a tremendous impact, not only on Lebanon, but on Boone County and the entire surrounding area. Some of the concerns that I noted at our last meeting still stand from Farm Bureau. Preserving farm ground, recognizing it as a natural resource, responsible development that recognizes property rights while bringing in development that brings in good jobs. We will support home rule. And what we've seen in the last couple of months is anything but home rule. The state's been driving this local zoning, and local zoning should be driven at the state level. County level, not the state level. That disturbs me no end. The fiscal plan that you were presented tonight, as I noted before, is simplistic. It ignores many of the things that will have to be done in an area, even if development doesn't occur. And as noted, 1,272 acres have already been purchased by IEDC. There's been no commitment of when that ground is going to be sold or given to another entity, or if there's going to be a pilot payment in lieu of taxes. So right now, the county's on the hook for those taxes that aren't going to be paid. You annex it tonight, you become the fun party that has to deal with not getting taxes on that part of it. There are financial risks with this that I don't think have been properly thought through. We talked about the fact that the state has made promises and said that they will take care of wastewater, they'll take care of water being brought down, utilities, many, many questions that are yet unanswered. The state has not offered an MOU that I'm aware of. They've not put anything in writing, offered any contractual arrangement other than saying, yes, we will do it. And as has been noted before, many of us are becoming less than confident in what the state says unless they'll put it in writing. If no industry comes forward in the next 6 months, year, or if the project doesn't develop the way they want it to, because of the fact that we're entering a period of higher interest rates, it appears we have a recession coming. If many of you can remember what happened when Anson was first developed, they had a good plan, they put it together, and then that thing stalled for about 4 years when the real estate crisis of 2008 hit. Duke was panicked. They didn't want to be part of that anymore. You're going to be part of that if you annex that, if we have any kind of a similar slowdown in the economy, one that I think is likely.
3 minutes.
Too many issues still remain. I would urge you to think about these and ask good questions and demand answers before you make a decision on this tonight. Thank you.
Additional public comment.
Hi, my name is Glenn Beasy. I live at 71 South, 200 West in Lebanon. A couple things I wanted to bring up. Number one, the government doesn't have a bank account. The government doesn't have its own money. What they have are taxpayer dollars. That didn't get brought up yet. Number two, we keep talking about the Area Plan Commission meeting that was held and how it was brought forth favorably to this council. And I want to remind everybody that that was of the razor-thin vote, one person difference. It went 5-4, and it could have very easily gone the other way, and we wouldn't be here tonight. I remember when this first got brought up, and there was a big meeting at Western Boone, and my county commissioners were thrown under the bus for this. And they were attacked at that meeting, and everybody thought that the county commissioners were behind all this, and well, now we see that that's not the case. And I do care about what's going on in my community. I do care what's going on in my county, but I'm going to do something that's not always done in this room, and I'm going to be upfront and I'm going to be honest. I mostly care about what's going to happen at 71 South, 200 West. We bought that house and that property a year ago. And that was our dream to be there, just on the edge of the town, still a somewhat rural setting, even though when the trees lose their leaves, we've got all the business park lights there, but we knew it when we moved in there. But now, we're going to have a whole lot more across the road from us. Something a 6-foot berm is not going to stop. It's not going to stop all the noise, it's not going to stop all the lights, and it's certainly going to bring a whole lot more traffic. Today, we just saw the first rendering of this roundabout that's intended to be at 32 and 200 West. Roundabouts only work when they're about 2 miles wide. The one at 47 and 32 doesn't work. You get traffic going one direction and everybody else is sitting. It's a big mistake if you're thinking about a roundabout to make it any less than 2 miles wide. It's just not going to work. There's a lot of traffic there. There's times when I try to go home and I have to sit while 55-mile-an-hour traffic approaches me from behind while I'm waiting to turn on my little county road because there's a line of traffic that's going all the way out to 400 West. So I am not against growth, controlled growth. I'm not against it. But I want the transparency that's supposed to be there. And this just doesn't feel right, and I would urge you to not move forward with this, to vote no tonight, because you are supposed to be here representing the people that live here. You're elected officials that represent the people that live here, not your interests, not the state's interests, the citizens of Boone County and the citizens of Lebanon. That's your job. Thank you.
Alan Mower, 7015 North Caldwell Road, Lebanon. I live out north of town. I have a note from Mike Andrioli. He couldn't be here tonight, but his comments and statements to the council at the first hearing still stand. I would like to address a couple of things. First, the financial projections. I agree with Mr. Kincaid wholeheartedly. This is an awful big project. These few numbers that we presented tonight, how can you vote on that without more information? Because that is not the future. Second, the water issues. IEDC hoped that they could get water out of the Taze Aquifer in Clinton County. That didn't work. They've moved to the Wabash. As of 2 weeks ago, they do not know whether they're going to get water out of the Wabash. Let me emphasize hope. That project, I've heard, could cost up to $1 billion, and in order to get that kind of money, they're going to have to go to the state legislature. They do not have that vote yet, so they are hoping that they get that money. So, right now, the business plan is hope. And what kind of a business plan is hope? That is a recipe for disaster. Okay, one other issue that has not been brought up to any of these annexation meetings is the odors that these factories are going to put out. And where are they at? Southwest of Lebanon and west. Where do the prevailing winds come from? From the west and southwest. So I guess the people of Lebanon will just have to get used to the odors. And they're going to put a residential district right northwest of all this. Does that make any sense? And I do agree with some of the people here tonight that I have a big fundamental issue with the state telling me what is best for me and my community. Thank you.
Please call Kelly.
So Jeff Newman, 218 North Park Street, but also have 195 North, 200 West. Mentioned earlier some of the setbacks, some of the things that were in what would be allowed. If you go out to cold storage now, get about the distance that's being talked about, this, the setback, do the old scout thing. This is 1 hour of sunlight. You're losing about an hour and a half of sunlight if you're anywhere near as close as this. So if you happen to be pinched in, as a lot of these properties are, then now the sun's going to rise currently at roughly 10 a.m. They'll be in shadow till 10 a.m. and then they'll be back in shadow at about 3:30 p.m. Okay, so if those setbacks are what you go by, that's what you're looking at, and that's not even with a 250-foot building. Okay, so take a look at those. Get out, protractor, whatever. Take a look at those angles and what those setbacks are going to impact on people's properties. Trucks and traffic. 200 West is already seeing how much truck traffic, 100 trucks or so a day. Trucks are going to go where trucks go, especially when there's construction for the next decade plus. They're going to go there, and they're going to get stuck there or have to just go through because the no truck signs aren't near enough for especially an inexperienced or even just a truck driver. And a lot of the truck traffic is drop shipments. So they're actually out on the roads more in the evenings when we're all coming home from work and school. There is truck traffic during the day, but most of this is going to be drop shipments. So they're going to drop the trailer, pick up a new trailer, head off in the night. So all that's going to be happening in the evenings. Okay? The backup, beep, 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 and all the banging on doors and stuff, that picks up at 5 p.m. from the current industrial park. That's what they're going to do with these because they're not going to want to intermix the employee traffic with the truck traffic as much as possible. And conceptual map has about 100 dock doors out our front door. So personal concern there. But there's going to be a lot. If you look at the gaps, appreciate that this is a voluntary annexation. I think several members have raised concern about not going ahead and just bringing everybody in that's within this outline. If you look at the people that are being pinched, as well as the houses that are kind of islands out in there, my count, not scientific, about 55 or 60 families. Okay, 44 people have sold, 55 or 60 still have all those little pockets. So those are the people who aren't going to be, those are still going to be county properties.
that are within all of this. So appreciate not being forced, but double check those numbers, okay?
2 minutes.
There was comment about this being voluntary annexation, or I think the last meeting, somebody had mentioned, well, they can sue to be annexed, they got to be annexed. It's true, but can they sue to get a specific designation that they're going to be industrial, or they're going to be LEAP, or they're going to be this? Or can they, like was mentioned before, if they sue to be annexed, is that with their current use? You know, is that currently ag land that they can sue to be annexed in, or residential, or have a accepted use? Mention about government, you know, a presidential administration ago, Trump organization punished foreign companies for essentially taking our business, or for our businesses sending manufacturing overseas. Current administration is incentivizing, especially if you can do something along the lines of green. We do have a governor who's trying to grow the state and the economy.
4 minutes.
We have local leadership that now I think is being kind of pushed and pressured to accept what is coming down the pipe, and the local people so far showing up saying, we don't want it. So this is all getting pushed downhill. Appreciate you letting us talk. I really hope that you've listened and that you're hearing what we're saying as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Kim Love. I live at 3150 North State Road 52. I was raised by a very wise man who said, when you go to the grave, you don't get to take anything with you but your reputation. So, your reputation here, gentlemen, is on the line. You are representing a huge number of people in this city, and now you are affecting a number of people in the county. I hope that you will consider the ramifications of what you're doing and also look outside the box. There are other options, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong, I'm not sure. But couldn't you tell the IEDC no to this current plan, but ask them to come back to you with a different plan, one that is more feasible to the people of the community, where they don't take in all 5,500 acres in one big swath? None of us in this community that I have spoken to are against development. We are not against growth. We are not against progress for Boone County or Lebanon. But we would like to see it done in a more organic fashion instead of being bulldozed over by the state. So I challenge you, gentlemen, to think of your long-term reputations as leaders of this community, and I want you to challenge the IEDC to come up with a slightly different plan that will be more agreeable to the masses.
Hi, my name is John Lastly, 704 North Lebanon Street. I've had a business in this community for 30 years plus. I love the community. I love Lebanon. Why, some people have asked, why the last two annexations I've voted no for, as far as being on the Planning Commission. It's not the right time, guys. It is not. We have the Andy Card project coming up that we have to facilitate as a city. We have 600 homes going out past the fairgrounds. And in my opinion, Lebanon is not ready for this. And I think some of you that's been on the board for a while, I think you really do know that. But I think it's just one thing, money. Money, money. I want to say that as I said, I was one of 4 people that voted against it, and if I had any more time to do it, I would be voting against it every single time. But as of next week, I will no longer be on the Planning Commission. I've resigned, and I would stick 100% behind these people out here.
Any further comments? Additional public comment?
Rick LaFollette, West State Road 32, excuse me. I haven't yet heard any explanation as to why the state, with its infinite resources of taxpayer treasury, which they're getting ready to steal more next year with property taxes, is bankrolling a project that should be privately investor done. It just seems to me like every time that high-tax Holcomb comes back from palling around with his pals, leftist pals over in Davos, Switzerland, Boone County gets screwed more. And on a more personal note, why are these gentlemen having reserved seats when the rest of us here don't? Why are they more important than anybody else? I don't understand that at all.
Additional public comment? Seeing none? Discussion, questions, comments from council? Questions for Ben of the IEDC? Anything else come up for you as well?
Yeah.
Can you grab the mic, Mike? There you go.
David, yeah, somebody had a question about the water. The question about the water and the nothing signed, or it's not sure that can come from the Wabash aquifer.
Yes. So if I remember correctly, reference was made to the Great Lakes. We're not taking water out of the Great Lakes. The Great Lakes obviously flow, have different river streams, tributaries they run through, go into different aquifers. So we are exploring through our engineering design process, the best location where that can be pulled out. There is state law that we cannot impact anyone downstream, and so all the drilling, studying, testing by the hydrologists are currently being done so that any short-term or long-term impact is none, and that it can supply the regional water for the entire central Indiana area. In terms of an agreement, like I said, the long-term is still being engineered and designed as we currently speak, and so there's not really an agreement to have other than, again, the commitment that it's on the state's dime, because we are here to solve the central Indiana water crisis that is occurring, and it's being spurred by an economic development investment here in the area. Did that answer your question?
Mike, I'd also say too, we don't have any authority, unless the area is annexed into the city, right? That's not part of our service territory, right? So we don't have any legal authority to enter into an MOU with the state concerning water for that area when it's not within city limits.
Okay, I was just trying to get it answered because someone had the question, and, you read about what's happening with Colorado and the Mississippi and that type of thing, so, it's a concern.
Understanding it's going to continue to evolve. We're meeting with stakeholders throughout the entire area and down in central Indiana on the long-term solution. Again, this is something that has been studied for several years now. Study was done by Indiana Finance Authority detailing the lack of water in central Indiana over the next several decades. So again, this is not just for the LEAP district. This is a central Indiana regional generational water solution. Again, that can be spurred by economic development and the state being at the table with the resources.
So I know you guys have been thinking about this stuff for a long time, but, the problem is that nobody knows about it, and it brings up all these questions, and then they think we're people trying to sneak things through when no one really is. It's just that, the information is just not out there as much.
Yeah, we are happy to come back as invited to give updates on the progress of utilities or development deals that we can share, once a quarter, once a month, whatever this body wants as this progresses. Because, again, it is in the study phase. There's going to be more answers that are forthcoming for the long-term solution. And so we are happy to update this body as much as we're invited to be.
And several questions being brought up regarding spending tax dollars on something that a commercial developer should be doing. Can you address the tax dollar question, like where's your money come from and are you going to get paid back, number one? Number two, why is it an advantage for the state of Indiana to get involved rather than have Duke or someone else do it?
Yeah, again, I think for a project this size, the state resources, our ability to do, taxes and financing, those built-in advantages is certainly on the table. A lot of states that we have lost deals to previously have already gone in this route in terms of strategic site development. You look at Michigan, North Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Georgia, the states that we are competing against for these multi-billion-dollar investments. Again, these are not all foreign corporations has been achieved. This is a true reshoring and modernization of the supply chain of American companies that had previously gone offshore. So the ability to compete for these, get more of Indiana's fair share, have the site that is ready when a developer says we want to make this investment, that the site is ready and they can come in, have it zoned, have ownership under control, have utilities available is absolutely critical. As we said previously, speed is the new incentive, and we have to be ready to meet the needs of the market. Also, on the question of the recession, these are multi-billion-dollar corporations. A short-term recession is not scaring them off in terms of making that investment. They are looking 30, 40 years down the line. And so they have the capital already in their business and have the equity that they can make this investment. And again, a short-term recession is not scaring them off.
What about the money? I mean,
yeah, we receive
money.
Yeah, so we receive appropriation from the General Assembly, like other state agencies. We're quasi, but we still go through the same process. As was mentioned previously, we also had approval from the State Budget Agency, State Budget Committee in June, $464 million for land purchase and utility and infrastructure upgrades to the LEAP district already. And so we're going through that budgeting process starting in January at the state legislature as well.
Do you get that money paid back?
So if in the course of a transaction that we negotiate with a company, they will buy that land, then we will get paid back, which again is the long-term goal. The IEDC is not intended to be the long-term holder of the land up here.
But so you get your money back, the state gets their money back?
Correct.
Minus some expenses or something?
For the land, yeah. I mean, we're certainly investing in utilities and, tools like the IDD can capture that tax revenue, reinvest in the area for utilities and roads and those type of things. And so it's not all a true cash outlay that we have to have, dollars on the first dollar in. Again, you can't do an abatement with an IDD because that defeats the purpose. And so the property tax abatement question is not in play when there's an IDD.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Dave, that money you get back from selling the property, that goes back and stays in the IEDC, isn't that correct?
So that's currently being debated. Right now, it's going back to State Budget Committee because of their initial outlay for the $164 million that they approved, yeah. So back to the state in some capacity.
Okay. Another question or comment. I believe that you and your staff designers or whatever have been working with the county and the city as well, engineering department, to talk about, discuss the different roads and the structures and so forth that needs improvements, like on 150 West Whit Road going to the north end and on the south end, 300 north and so forth, and maybe 375, I don't know, possible 39 and things like that. Your staff has already been, your engineering department, road engineering department, has already been working on some of that with the different departments, the county and the city, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Our staff, NDOT, county staff, and city staff have already been working together, collaborating on the road infrastructure network.
Yeah, okay.
So are they really closing off Whit Road?
Yeah.
Ben?
What's that? And what they've filed to date. But again, this reemphasizes the point of the city and the council being at the table throughout the process to have those discussions directly with companies as they come in.
The plan that Lily submitted has not been approved. That's just been submitted to the city, right?
There's still road designing going on to try to figure out how to alleviate some of those issues, but some of those issues are going to happen because there'll be straight roads that'll be actually leading into Lily's, the way I assume.
Correct, yeah.
And so there'll be other avenues for the people to get around and get out, so forth on those roads, so.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions for David or Ben? Council?
No, I just got a comment. You know, this is different. It really is different. I can't say everybody agrees with it because it's something we're using tax dollars to do that, and it's probably something that's really been around for a long time. It's just been emphasized a little bit more here in the last 2 or 3 years that the state of Indiana needs to kind of catch up on economic development, okay? And this area kind of fit at the easiest area. That's the way I look at it. This area kind of fits the easiest area across the state for what you were looking for. I'm not saying it's good or bad, I'm just saying it kind of fits. And so something that probably should have been planned for years to try to figure out probably looks like we're rushing to get to the point to get in the game to a lot of people. And I think, I'm not going to say let's step back, I'm just going to say take some baby steps as we go to make sure we're doing it right as we go. This is taking another big leap, I'm telling you, that we're taking another big leap and maybe taking 5,000 acres here, okay? And I understand, but I want everybody working in the background to make things work for the different improvements that need to happen. Because being an old road guy, I like the road system that's going to be coming, that's being kind of laid out so far, only because I looked at those years ago. And that's what you've got to look at, is what it's going to look like years from now, how it's going to help people. Because spoke about 3911's got a traffic. Yeah, we got a traffic problem. We've always had a traffic problem in Lebanon, you know, and it always happens at 5 o'clock. So you just know to avoid certain areas, you know. So it just happens. But if 300 North gets put in, the interchange gets put in there, there's going to be a lot of that traffic that's going to be taken off and hitting the interstate. Of course, if it goes down, and if the road from 52 goes on down to 32, that's a plus. That is a big plus for the city of Lebanon, that we could take that water traffic off of 65 over to 52 down to 32. That is a huge plus for the city of Lebanon and State Road 39. So.
And if I can just amend, it certainly wasn't the term easiest. I will say this is absolutely one of the most attractive to the market places in the state. As we get RFPs and submit this site, it is routinely ranked, you know, the top destination for companies in the market looking to locate. And it's because of great communities, it's because of proximity to Purdue, Rose-Hulman, Indianapolis labor market, the airport, accessibility. And so easiest isn't the word I'd use, but certainly most attractive to the market as well. You know, and to your point, there's already been great collaboration with local officials. We have a nearly weekly meeting that has occurred since March with city, county, state legislators, other representatives of the community to ensure that we're coordinating on these issues, and that'll continue to occur into the new year.
I'd like to make one more comment that I know the mayor's taking a lot of heat over this, and you know, actually it kind of goes back to the legislature and your representatives here, your senator and your state representative. They're the guys that voted for this to make all this happen. So, you know, kind of give him a break, you know, kind of give them a break. But I'll let you know one thing. You know, Lebanon for years have been looking for a high-tech industrial park to come to Lebanon. 2 previous mayors before Mayor Gentry here wanted a high-tech industrial park in Lebanon. I'm telling you, where it was going to go, nobody knew. But if they could get one, they wanted one, wherever it could go. Okay? We're just, maybe not lucky, I don't know. But this just happens to be a possibility. It could be a high-tech area to come to Lebanon. And so I just want people to know, everybody's been wanting one for 20-some years.
Not everybody.
Well, I know you haven't, but I'm just saying, I know you haven't, but I'm just saying, every mayor up here on the city of Lebanon the past 20 years wanted a high-tech business park. I want you to know that.
Stay
So,
south of Lebanon, where you already in.
You know, so, okay.
Additional comments?
I'm done.
Any other final questions for Ben from council?
For Ben?
Or just general comments from you, either way?
Yeah, I got a comment, but you got questions for somebody, go ahead and get them up here.
I think we're good? Good.
Well, there's two things going on. Number one is you've got the annexation question, then you've got the development question. People can sell their property, and people can buy that property, and then they can ask to be annexed, regardless of their own personal reasons. You know, we make decisions based on desire for gain or fear of loss. So those folks decide to sell their land because they desire to gain something. And they can ask to do it. Now, I don't know why they're not here fighting for their thing too, but, you know, I guess that doesn't work out like that. But that's one thing. And then the other side of it is the zoning part is what everybody's really concerned about is the zoning part. And that's another question. And if the city of Lebanon has jurisdiction over that area, then the city has its infrastructure, its zoning and so forth to control what's going in. What happens if the city of Lebanon did not annex that? Then growth is going to happen. It's going to occur, because I've been here for 68 years, and I remember leaving Lebanon, and you didn't see anything until you hit Lafayette Road. So we've all watched all that happen. Now, it's going to happen out there anyway, but it could happen piecemeal. And when it happens piecemeal, then you get things like mulch mountains, and you get other things that you may not want. I mean, that's just one way to look at it. That's a viewpoint. So, you know, and if the state wasn't involved, then the city would have to pay, or the county would have to pay for a lot of that infrastructure, and that's going to come out of our pocket at some point. You know, 400 or 500 years ago, someone told me that Indiana was a hardwood forest. And imagine, you know, when you had to build towns and houses and cities, you had to cut down all the trees to build stuff. And then all that land became farmland. And I'm pretty sure there's probably a lot of people upset because they were cutting down trees. The original settlers, or the original people that were there, right? So now, if I had a magic wand, I'd send it to Kokomo. But I don't have a magic wand. I can. And I have to vote based on what I know the city's going to need in the future. And this is not the only group that I talk to. So you guys are great, you're vocal, you're passionate, but there's other people there's a group that's passionate for more development, and there's a bunch of people out here that don't even know what's going on.
Right here, yeah.
To gain money in their political careers.
Well, everybody has a job. Everybody has a job. So, just, you know, let me make my comments. I didn't talk over you when you were talking. Just trying to answer the questions that I heard. You know, and if I lived out there, I'd probably be there. I didn't have this job. Right now I have this job. And so you have to make decisions based on what's good for the overall picture for the next 25 years. And that's short time thinking. 25 years, 50 years. So, anyway, there's a lot of things we would like to do, but we can't do because we don't have jurisdiction over the land. So the question is, if you don't annex, then all they have to do is go another route to get annexed. Because if the people who ask to be annexed, if they meet all the rules for the code of Indiana, then you have to annex. That's just the way it works. If we said no, then all they do is go to the court, and the judge says, well, you didn't break any rules, you get annexed. So, yeah, so anyway, that's all I got to say. Thank you for coming.
Any additional comments? Okay. This time then, I would entertain a motion concerning ordinance 2022-38. Is there a motion from council?
I make a motion, we approve ordinance number 2022-38.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Ordinance 2022-38 passes 5-1. Thank you, council. All right, that concludes what I had under the change of this consent agenda. We'll move up back onto our regular scheduled agenda. This would be ordinance item A, ordinance 2022-31, ordinance violations bureau. This ordinance on second reading.
Want to give it a few minutes?
Yeah, we'll stay in a recess for about 5 minutes.
Disgraceful.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Apologize. So not re-adjourn, come back from recess. There we go, sorry, thank you. We will move to item E, ordinance 2022-36. Council consider PUD rezone for Onyx Point. This ordinance on second reading. Sorry, Matt, throwing a curveball at you, trying to be nicer applicants that counts after everything tonight, so.
No worries. I appreciate tonight. I won't be long. This is a second reading, some stuff that we went through a few weeks ago. But before you tonight is a property up on the north side of town. If they want to pull up the overhead for us, I can reorient us to where we're at. So this property on North State Road 39, just north of 250, across the street from Witham Hospital. The applicant is proposing a PUD rezone for them to develop a luxury townhome product here. Approximately 70 townhomes, 2-story, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, single-car garage with 2-car driveway, so 3 parking spots per unit, with additional guest parking throughout the development. The rezone has underwent TAC and plan review from the planning staff, and it does come to you with a favorable recommendation from the Plan Commission. Let me pull up the exhibit here. And so State Road 39 is to the east here with a single-lane drive with a cul-de-sac, and again, parking at each unit with some guest parking up front, along the pond, and in the rear near the amenities area. Scroll down, and they are proposing a landscape plan that does meet the standards with landscaping between each drive, between each building, and around the perimeter. And they are proposing architectural standards that do meet, as it falls off the screen, do meet the code of the multifamily development as well as the PUD that they're proposing. And I'd be happy to answer any questions as the applicants are here, if you have any questions for them as well.
Any questions for Matt or the applicants at this time?
No, sir. How soon do they plan on starting?
I'll let the applicant answer.
As soon as we give you approval?
Thank you, I appreciate it. My name's David Klein, the developer. As far as timing, our goal would be to try to get it going and then in mid-23 to start development would be the hope if all goes as planned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
What was your last name?
Klein, K-L-A-I-N.
I have a quick question. You probably can't answer this, but I get this a lot when developments come in for housing. They go, why that kind of housing? And the answer is always, that's what the market wants. How do we know the market wants this, and how do I tell people? That's just too general answers sometimes. You may not be able to answer it, I get that, but
No, I understand that
we
question.
get that a lot on the council.
Absolutely. So our evaluation is based off of some history. So I own a number of duplexes out in Brownsburg that I built 20 years ago. And in our evaluation, when we looked at Brownsburg, and I go back and look 20 years ago at the population of Brownsburg, the development of Brownsburg, everything that was going on, it was about the same exact size that Lebanon is right now. And we've had a great success with that product, and I kick myself many times for not buying the rest of the land that was around it that could have all been ours, that other developers were able to take hold of and do the same product that we did, and it's continued to be very successful. We understand that there's there are only 70 units, so we're not talking a major apartment complex that's 300 units. So 70 units isn't that big of a project when you're filling in for an area that is obviously starving for more residential units and newer construction. So as you bring all these new jobs in and you have all this growth, a lot of that demographic would like a newer residence, so they would like newer amenities for that. And the townhome product offers something different than a conventional apartment complex where you have someone living above you or below you. You don't really have the ability to park in a garage and walk right into your unit. You have a backyard, your own private patio. So it kind of blends some lifestyle between your single family and your traditional apartment living and gives a unique product line that's in the middle there. that becomes very desirable for people that don't want to deal with yard maintenance and mowing and everything else that goes with it. So that's kind of our take on it and our evaluation of why we looked at this area and continued to look at Lebanon as a great opportunity for growth.
Now,
For
this
some
is,
different products.
they buy these.
No, these we would own, lease, and manage.
Oh, okay.
So it's a rental product.
Okay.
That, like I said, so different than an apartment rental, offers a different type of rental unit.
What's the rental rates going to be?
You know, obviously, being that we're sitting here probably a year plus away from where we'll end up, there's really no way to know based on construction cost and labor cost that we'll have to try to evaluate. Our market rates would typically be somewhere in the, $1,500 to $1,800 range for something in that line. I know out in Brownsburg, our units that are 20 years old, we're getting $1,600 a month for a 3-bedroom unit similar to that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Morris, also to your point, you look at generationally, right? We have a lot of baby boomers, right, that are now aging, right? And they don't want to have all the yard work anymore and are ready to downsize, and the townhomes are ready to, or is a good option for them. So let's talk about the market. That's part of that factor as well, too, so.
You're looking at the entire council, aren't you?
I was going to say, I think he's looking at all of us, yes.
Well, as a millennial, we need to move out of your homes, too.
Exactly.
So, sorry. I'm just
Any other questions? Happy to answer for you.
Any other questions for the applicant or comments from council?
No, sir.
Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
And thank you. All right, Rob, have you read that on second reading, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Council Ordinance 2022-36 is an ordinance for this council amending Ordinance 07-16, Unified Development Ordinance of the City of Lebanon. The City of Lebanon is again subject to the Unified Development Ordinance. The City of Lebanon Advisory Plan Commission considered petition docket 22-69 filed with the commission requesting an amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance in the zoning map, all as described in Exhibit A. The commission forwarded docket 22-69 after a public hearing on November 21st, 2022 to this council with a favorable recommendation by a vote of 9-0 in accordance with Indiana Code. This council is subject to the provisions in Indiana Code, and I'm not going to go through and read all of these 14 pages, but again, we went through this in first reading, but Section 1 addresses the applicability of the ordinance, Section 2 is definitions, Section 3 is the concept plan that's also set forth in Exhibit B. Section 4 is the underlying zoning districts, Section 5 is the permitted use, Section 6 is the overlay districts, Section 7 discusses the general regulations, and Section 8 gets into the development standards. Section 9 is the design standards. Section 10 is the street standards, and Section 11 addresses permitting and procedures.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Ordinance has been read on second reading. Any further discussion, comments from council?
Make a motion we approve ordinance 2022-36.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved unanimously. Thank you, council, and thank you guys, and best of luck with your product. Okay, next up, all right, now we'll revert back to our regular scheduled agenda. Next item up, ordinance 2022-31, Ordinance Violations Bureau. This ordinance is on second reading, and there's also a public hearing with this tonight. Just as a reminder to council, it's been a little while since we've talked about this. We had to, because I had to think about this when I rewrote the ordinance, but I changed some of the fees, actually reduced some of them and consolidated some of them, and I forgot whenever you change the fee structure, you have to do a public hearing. So apologize for that oversight. So again, just as a reminder, this is essentially a solution, short-term solution, but also a long-term function to help us resolve the enforcement of minor city ordinances. In this ordinance, we talk specifically about parking enforcement, fireworks, golf carts, things of that similar nature that, fairly straightforward ordinance violations that can be handled by the future Ordinance Violations Bureau, which would be housed in the clerk's office. So would be kind of go hand in hand going in the future as well with our city court there would be things that could be referred to city court or to this violations bureau for kind of minor offenses, essentially. So just kind of put some framework in place that allows us to go through this process to start reinforcing those ordinances that are on the books, but without a city court, we haven't been able to enforce. So Rob, is there anything I missed on that? That was kind of a high-level review of this, but...
Yeah, that's correct. It's, in, the ordinance addresses this, but there actually was an ordinance violation bureau that was set up years ago. So this is just trying to provide a better procedural mechanism, give people their appeal rights should they so desire.
Yeah, and I should mention too, from an appeal standpoint, right, so if you, if the police write a violation from an ordinance to the Violations Bureau, Tanya or her staff makes a decision on whether someone is guilty or not. If they're guilty and they choose to appeal that, they still would have the ability to appeal to the county courts, the circuit court, correct? So they still do have an appeal process if they choose to go through it. It just wouldn't be through our courts at this time. Theoretically, we could change this later, that once we have a city court re-implemented, there could be an appeal process to our city court that we could kind of readjust that. So this isn't any kind of violations without any due process or appeal process. You still retain those rights. Are you going to do that over a $20 fireworks fee, violation? I don't know, right? But you still have that avenue available to you if you choose to do so. So, yeah. Okay. Rob, can you read the ordinance, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Council Ordinance 2022-31, again, concerns an amendment to Chapter 35, the Ordinance Violations Bureau. Whereas it's the duty and responsibility of this council to maintain public order and safety of the city. Pursuant to Indiana Code, it permits the establishment of an Ordinance Violation Bureau. This council has previously established an Ordinance Violation Bureau with adoption of Ordinance 81-21 on November 23, 1981. Whereas it is deemed necessary to amend Chapter 35 of the Lebanon City Code. Now therefore, the foregoing recitals are incorporated by reference. As of the effective date of this ordinance, Chapter 35 of the City Code shall be amended in accordance with Exhibit A. The remaining portions of Chapter 35 are not affected by this ordinance and shall remain in full force and effect. As of the effective date of this ordinance, Chapter 72, 75, and 103 of the City Code shall be amended in accordance with Exhibit B. All other ordinances that are inconsistent with any provision of this ordinance are hereby rescinded, and this ordinance shall be in full force and effect upon its adoption.
Thank you, Rob. Ordinance has been read on second reading. Any further discussion from council?
No, sir.
This time I'll open the public hearing on Ordinance 2022-31. If you have any public comment, please step forward. State your name and address for the record. Seeing no sudden movement, I will close the public hearing on Ordinance 2022-31. Final thoughts, comments from council? Would entertain a motion?
I move we approve Ordinance 2022-31, Ordinance Violations Bureau.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Brent and then Dick at the second. Yep. Ordinance passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Okay, next item up is Ordinance 2022-33, City Council redistricting. This ordinance is also on second reading. Rob, I'm going to have you read it, and then I brought some better maps this time, and I'll go up to overhead to present those.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance 2022-33 concerns an ordinance of this council establishing council districts. This council has previously adopted maps dividing the city into districts such that the residents of the city elect council members pursuant to Indiana Code. Indiana law provides that the council must adopt new maps the second year after decennial census as codified in Indiana Code. Due to the growth in the population of the city, as represented by the 2020 census, the council districts created by Ordinance 2012-21 are no longer reasonably compact and or no longer equal in population. The Office of the Mayor crafted the proposed districts using the 2020 decennial census that prioritize compactness, equal population, contiguity, preserving census blocks, and keeping communities of interest together, and using major roads, natural and geographic features as the dividing line. Council has reviewed the proposed districts at open-door public meetings. In order to comply with Indiana Code and the provisions contained herein, the council desires that the districts should be amended as set forth below, and the maps are attached as Exhibits A in the meets and bounds descriptions and Exhibit B, all of which would be adopted as of the day of passage.
All right, down here now, guys. So I've got this overhead here. There we go. See, I never work this thing here. All right, so here's a good overview of all of the districts. As you can see, the goal, we talked about population. Let me slide this up here. So these are the populations of the districts. I think the goal for the population was a 300, and actually District 3, I think, was right on what the target number was, right? So as you can see, we're within a few on several of the districts, and then also, so District 5 and District 1, they're the ones that are the furthest away, but there were some challenges with the census blocks and just the way those break up. And you can't break up census blocks in the redistricting, right? So that was created the challenge with it. So, again, Rob talked about, we focused on compactness and using natural features to divide. Obviously, between 3 and 4, that uses the rail line as the dividing line there. Between 4, 5, and 1, that's obviously using State Road, or State Road 39. That's used again as well between 1 and 2, and then of course the second district with a lot of the rural areas south there, kind of you work up from the bottom there. So that's the overview of the city. I have all the districts as well. This is District 1. So this is currently Councilman Kincaid's district. So as you can see, it's Washington Street on the bottom there, goes up. Again, using 39 for part of it. There was a census block that crossed over there, also going up to the park in Newland and grabbing those areas. So that's District 1. District 2, again, the mostly rural area, Keith's district, right? Mostly the west side of State Road 39 as well goes along State Road 32 as a kind of another dividing line between that and District 3. And then, of course, this doesn't reflect the annexation that occurred tonight, but everything south of 32 is what we proposed adding into District 2 as well, and then District 3 will be everything north of 32. So, again, try to use just major geographic features to set the boundaries of the city. Just makes sense as we're trying to, put neighborhoods together that makes sense there. District 3. Obviously, Morris has a little bit of an interesting district based on recent annexations. You can see the northern section here is the Lilly area, as well as where it crossed over the interstate, but the bulk of the population in this district is obviously here, kind of the Marley Heights area, as we want to call it. So, but again, that main dividing line there between is everything west of the railroad track. We all know that's kind of a dividing line in our community. And obviously, it's an impediment for traffic, right? You can only cross at 2 points, so that's kind of where this district came from. And again, trying to make these as close to population as possible. So, District 4, Councilman Robertson's district. Again, mostly dividing lines between the railroad. It kind of sneaks across the railroad north of town once you start getting some access to. With Anderson Lane and 250 North, the new Sunbrook area that's in there, because you do have access across, but also we needed contiguity. District 3 does not touch Sunbrook because there are some parcels there in between that aren't extending, so we had to extend the District 4 across from the north, so that's why those kind of parcels there had to be part of that. And then again, using the majority, the railroad track and then Lafayette Avenue, and State Road 39 is the main dividing lines. And I believe it goes down to State Road 32 as well, and uses that as another dividing line too. So, and then what's left, essentially, Councilman Copeland's district, District 5. Again, this was kind of envisioned, it's kind of a north side district. Obviously uses State Road 39 as the dividing line again on to the west, and then grabs everything that's north and then works its way down, including the new portions of Elmwood that are now part of the city, and then works its way around. And as you can see, the tricky part that we ran into here with District 1, you see it very well on this map. The southern portion here, this is Edgewood, this is the same census block as things over here, right? So it had to kind of wrap around to grab all that. And I don't know why they drew the census block that way, but they did. But that was the only way to make sure that you could get the as close as we could to make sure they're still contiguous. So we had to make sure that continuity was preserved with that. So that was District 5. So again, I think these meet the goals very well. We talked about this at our public or our working session. Again, you guys told me the goal was to get them as close population-wise as possible, but then also, as compact as possible, and also using natural geographic features as well too. So I'll leave this up here, and then I'll come back to my seat if you guys have any questions and want to discuss them.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah.
Do we inform the residents in some manner about these changes?
I mean, we're doing it now.
I mean, do you send them a letter or something like
No,
that?
we did. No, we had it. I mean, we discussed it at our work sessions during our work sessions during the summer. So that was kind of when we talked about that. You were not at that meeting.
Yeah.
But that was kind of when we talked about it, and the public had a chance to weigh in if they had planned to attend, but they did not. No one attended. But so again, this is part of this public process too. They're going through tonight as well. They'd have the opportunity to respond to that as well.
Once it's recorded, the county clerk will then probably send a notice out, won't they, change the voting district?
I don't know if they necessarily notify the residents. They may notify the precinct committeeman potentially. There may be some changes there, but I don't know the process on the clerk side of what they would do from a notification standpoint, but it's our responsibility to make sure that we notify the clerk, which we have done based on all the rules. They have a copy of this as well too.
I know I've gotten a card before, it tells me.
And maybe
Yeah.
there may be a difference between if you're changed your, because they may re-precinct as well. That's the other thing is, we did split precincts in this because again, we were trying to get population as close as possible, and some of the precincts just wouldn't have made that possible. So we again try to target that by census blocks. So the county may choose to then re-precinct based on this map. It's kind of the feedback we heard. It says, we may re-precinct, but we kind of want to see your maps first before we draw the precincts.
Because they're speaking to us again.
Yeah, we'll see after tonight, I guess, right?
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just want to commend the mayor. You did a great job of keeping those districts, in one case, one person apart.
Yeah, we're pretty close.
What a Tetris puzzle.
It's interesting when you start actually getting into the map of like the way the blocks look, because they're not how you would sometimes expect them to look, and especially they get when you get off the grid system, off the grid part of the community, it gets very tricky. So yeah, we tried to, those were the guiding principles, and I think we accomplished it. So.
Good job.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Okay. Would entertain a motion then concerning.
I'll make a motion we approve ordinance 2022-33.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do you mind if I actually open this up for public comment just to see? We have a motion and a second, but is there any public comment concerning this? I did want to give a chance there for that too. No? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That is approved. Thank you, council. And we'll inform the county clerk of the adoption of the ordinance, make sure that that is applicable for the 2023 election cycle as well too. So, okay, next item up, ordinance 2022-34, council to consider a partial right-of-way vacation for Ann Street. This is on second reading.
Good evening again, council. We'll go through this briefly again. We got into the weeds in it last time, but if you want to pull up the screen, we'll give you a quick refresher. We're on the near east side of Lebanon, Main Street along the north, and this is where Ann Street intersects with Main. We currently have 50 feet of right-of-way dedicated to the future development of Ann Street, which is currently operating as an alley and will always operate as an alley because it will never become a public street because it doesn't connect with another public street. So we have 50 feet of right-of-way here. The applicant is the property owner at 623 East Main Street in the black here, has requested 20 feet of right-of-way to be vacated to their property. So 20 feet to the east of this black line along the back for them to build a proposed accessory structure. In order to meet the necessary setback requirements of our UDO, they needed the extra space there. So if we were to vacate 20 feet of easement there, that would leave a remaining 30 feet of easement, which is more than sufficient for any maintenance of this Ann Street alley for any future needs that may be there. This did undergo TAC review from utilities, water and wastewater, electrical, City of Lebanon Fire Department, the Street Department, the Engineering Department, and no one had any issues with this particular vacation, and it does come to you with a favorable recommendation from the Plan Commission.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Any questions for Matt concerning this ordinance?
No.
Okay, Rob, do you want to read that for me, please?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Ordinance 2022-34 is an ordinance to vacate public ways. Whereas it's the duty and responsibility of this council to maintain the public right-of-ways for the benefit of the citizens of the city, and to vacate those no longer needed for the benefit of the public. Whereas the City of Lebanon Plan Commission had a petition docket 22-61 to vacate a portion of the public street right-of-way in the Ann Williams Second Edition plat, specifically, again, a 20-foot wide portion of the Ann Street right-of-way directly east and adjacent to 623 East Main Street, which is described as real estate and described in Exhibits A and B. The Plan Commission voted 9-0 to send a favorable recommendation to this council for its consideration. Therefore, pursuant to Indiana Code, the city has authority to vacate public rights-of-ways and now finds the public right-of-way identified in Exhibits A and B are no longer needed for the benefit of the public. After a duly advertised and published public hearing pursuant to Indiana Code, this council finds it's proper and necessary to vacate the public right-of-ways identified in Exhibits A and B. Conveyance of the real estate shall be to Alexander H. and Kimberly A. Andrews. This ordinance shall be in full force and effect upon its passage and any appropriate waiting periods.
Thank you, Rob. There is a public hearing required for this ordinance, so this time I'll open the public hearing on ordinance 2022-34. If you have public comment, please step forward, state your name for the record. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on ordinance 2022-34. Any discussion, comments for council?
No, sir.
Okay, we entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve ordinance 2022-34.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved unanimously. Thank you, council. All right, and finally, I have item D, ordinance 2022-35. Council to consider a partial right-of-way vacation for Superior Street. This is also on second reading.
Thank you again, council. I won't take long, this one, about 45 minutes left, so. We've been in the weeds on this one again. We've moved to the west side of town now. We're along Superior Street between Coombs on the west and Ryan Street on the east. In yellow here is the former Central Indiana Railway that was since vacated and added to the Superior Street right-of-way. So we now have 66 feet of right-of-way along Superior Street, which is more than sufficient for any improvements that would be required along there. The property owners to the north have requested the vacation of this 18 feet in yellow here, so they, for a proposed single-family development, in order to meet the necessary setback and requirements and maximize the use of their properties. So if we were to vacate the 18 feet of the 66, that would leave us 48 feet of right-of-way along Superior Street, which again is more than sufficient for any necessary road widening, sidewalks, anything that may be required per city standards should single-family develop along this these northern properties. So before you tonight is a partial right-of-way vacation request. Again, did undergo technical advisory review. The City of Lebanon Utilities Sanitary Division did identify a wastewater line, a sanitary sewer line that does run east-west through this proposed vacated property. So they are requiring a 20-foot easement to be recorded along with the vacation. But they had no issues with the electrical division. City of Lebanon Fire, Street, and Engineering Department had no issues with this vacation. And it also comes to you with a favorable recommendation from the Plan Commission.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Any questions for Matt from the council? Okay, there's also a public hearing with this one, so I'll open the public hearing on ordinance 2022-35. If you If any public comment, please step forward, state your name for the record. Okay. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on ordinance 2022-35. Oh, Rob probably needs to read it. Go ahead and read it, Rob. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Council. Ordinance 2022-35, again, is an ordinance to vacate public ways. Whereas it's the duty and responsibility of this council to maintain the public right-of-ways for the benefit of the citizens and vacate those no longer needed for the benefit of the public. Docket 22-68 was before the Plan Commission to vacate a portion of the public street right-of-way in the Halls Addition subdivision, as Mr. Reynolds indicated, specifically at 702, 710, and 714 West Superior Street, and 719 West Pearl Street, all as described in Exhibits A and B. Plan Commission voted 9-0 to send a favorable recommendation to this council for consideration. Pursuant to Indiana Code, the city has the authority again to vacate public right-of-ways and now finds that the public right-of-ways identified in Exhibits A and B are no longer needed for the benefit of the public. After a public hearing pursuant to Indiana Code, this council finds it proper and necessary to vacate the public right-of-way identified in Exhibits A and B. The conveyance of the real estate shall be to ME Rental Properties LLC, and this ordinance shall be in full force and effect in accordance with Indiana law.
Okay. Ordinance been read on second reading. Any discussions, comments, questions from council?
No, sir.
Okay. This time, then, I would entertain a motion concerning ordinance 2022-35.
I'll move we approve ordinance 2022-35.
We have a motion approved from Brent. Is there a second? Second from Dick. All those there say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That ordinance is approved unanimously. That concludes what I have for old business on my agenda. Is there anything from council?
No, sir.
All right, move to new business. I have nothing on my agenda for new business. Is there anything from council? Okay, move on to claims. Entertain a motion concerning the claims.
Make a motion, we pay the claims.
We have a motion to pay the claims. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Morris. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Those claims are approved. Before we adjourn, I just want to take a moment, want to thank the council for tonight. I know tonight was a long process, but I think it's been good to have the public have a chance to be heard, but also understand that we are here to represent what are in the best interests of our city, and I understand and hear all of your comments very poignantly that there needs to be a lot of discussions and expectations come along with the LEAP project, and I hope that I will live up to your expectations with that, and I plan to involve you guys in those conversations that make sure you are aware of this as this progresses as well, because this is not just about me, this is not just about this council or the city, this really is about the people that live here as well, and how do we use this opportunity we have to make their lives better every single day. So in the spirit of that, I do want to wish everyone also a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, since this is our last meeting of the year, and appreciated all the hard work and dedication from both city staff, but then also this council as we move through this year, and appreciate all the long nights and effort. So with that, unless there's any announcements or discussion from council.
I make a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think Brent beat you to it with a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second from Dick. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed. We are adjourned. Our next city council meeting will be January 9th, 2023, at 7:15 p.m. Have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. We are adjourned.
Last one, yeah.
No, we've not.
Don't leave.
Last two,
Last
please.
one,
Yeah, I
I
got it.
think.